Yo, listen, not getting the results you want from your business, it might mean that your strategy's broken. Stay tuned to learn the signs of a broken strategy and ways you can get back on track now. Hey everybody, welcome to the iProv vlog, where we help business leaders grow their business. If you're the first time on the channel, stop right now, click subscribe, hit that bell thing. I don't know why. People always say it in the YouTube videos I watch, so I want you to do that too, so you'll get notified whenever we put out new videos. We do these a couple times a week. And if you've been here before, you know that I'm always joined by my awesome co-host, Patrick Laughlin. What up, Pat?
What's going on, Joe? I'm starting to worry a little bit about you. You didn't dip into the dexamethasone, did you?
I'm just pumped today. I love strategy. You know, we've been talking about our Vista process for the past few videos, and now we're getting into strategy, which is one of my favorite parts. I love vision. Tactics are important, so are alignment. But this is something that I think is near and dear to every business owner's heart. So I'm pumped up on them business steroids. Is that a thing?
Yeah. So, you know, I think it's important to sort of acknowledge, and everybody knows this deep down, but, you know, to bring it to the surface is really important. We all have a limited amount of time, energy, attention, and ultimately, resources. And when we say resources, we really mean money. So as business leaders, as owners, we got to make sure that we're investing them in ways that produce returns. Because if we're not, we're just wasting everybody's time, energy, and attention, especially our own. And it's hugely demotivating. Nobody wants to work on something that's just not ever going to work, right? Mm-hmm. But it's really hard to know that when you set out. Guys like you and me come into a room and we tell people, look 10 years in the future. What does that look like? How can you build something that'll get you there? Well, the truth is, you got to break that down into really small chunks and then get feedback as early and as often as possible with as little investment as possible, right? There's a term in the software business for this. They call it a minimally viable product. You could also call it a minimally viable prototype. What's the smallest thing that you can create that will sort of be an analog for that long-term vision, on the smallest time scale that you can create it on, to get feedback to let you know if you're on the right decision, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. And I know people have heard this analogy all the time, but bite-sized chunks, right? For some reason, people talk about eating an elephant. That's your prerogative, but you got to eat that elephant in bite-sized chunks, and that's the same thing you have to do here. Because as business owners, Pat, you and I, but also whenever we talk to other businesses too, right? What do a lot of them do? They want to work backwards. There's a symptom of a problem, and they try to fix that by just tweaking tactics. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times you got to take a step back and say, hey, it might be your strategy here, right?
Yeah, you might be working on the wrong plan.
Mm-hmm.
It just, the plan you're working on may never get you to your long-term outcome. And so I think it's really important that you do break those things down into smaller time frames, and ask yourself, like, what is the most atomic time frame in my business? What is the smallest time frame I can work on something, get feedback, and then go back and adjust, right? For some businesses, it might be on an interaction by interaction basis, although that's not really helpful because then you're almost getting too much signal to noise ratio. I think a good sort of time frame for most businesses is a quarter. What can you create in a quarter that you can put out into the world, get feedback on, and then make adjustments in the next quarter to make sure you're on that right path, right?
Yep, because that does two things. One of the most important things is it gives this new strategy enough time to breathe, to see if it'll work or not. It also, if the thing fails, it also gives you enough inputs to figure out where exactly failed and why, instead of just saying that failed, let's throw this away and try something new. So, what's the smallest possible deliverable you can produce that'll give you the amount of feedback that you need to improve on that strategy.
Yeah, and that's really important. I think sort of knowing what you need to create and knowing how long you have to create it and how long it needs to be sort of available for feedback is really important. But ultimately, you've got to go out and you got to build the thing, right? You have to put the service out into the world, or you have to launch whatever you're working toward. And so, once again, you got to get whatever's in your head out into the actual world. And I encourage business owners to move quickly, make mistakes, don't get overwhelmed in detail. You're not in the polish stage because you have no idea if it's going to work or not, right? Always think, what's the minimum thing I need in order to get feedback? Chances are it is not some fully blown, fully polished thing. My favorite example is if you think that you need to be building a website, build it in PowerPoint. You can link between slides in PowerPoint. Build it in PowerPoint or Keynote or Google Slides and hand it over to people. With a really broad brush. Sort of paint a picture and let them see if it's something that makes sense and that they'd be willing to pay for, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then once you've got something that you can get feedback from, then go get the feedback. And that's the last part that you mentioned was don't just leave it on your computer and start putting it out. That's a scary part, I know, as a business owner, to put that stuff out there to the world and say, hey, I've spent, the past 2 weeks at night building this thing. I want you guys to kind of poke holes in it and pick it apart, but you got to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you're making a small investment, not only of time, energy, attention, and resources. You're investing a little piece of yourself in there, obviously, and so you got to be brave enough to just get it out there to get that feedback to tell you if the return is going to be worth building the final thing. Show it to friends and family, show it to non-competitive peers, demonstrate what you're trying to build, and see if they get excited about it. If they get excited about buying or investing, chances are you're on the right track, right?
Yeah, and also take it with a grain of salt, but take it seriously. You don't have to listen to every single piece of feedback. You can be selective, and chances are you'll know, which points are relevant and which points aren't, but at least you know that your plan has a chance of being successful and you've gotten an outside set of eyes on it,
Yeah. Ultimately, what you're doing is you're increasing the likelihood of creating the maximum return for the minimum investment. And that's the way that you protect your most precious resources, right? Is you always make sure that you're sort of testing with feedback, building these little packets that you can put out in the world that will tell you whether you're doing the right things or not. So,
and I want to hit on something that Pat said just a second ago that I don't want to gloss over, which is if you are lucky enough to have a team, you're not in the polishing stage of your career. Build the thing and give it to your team. Let them build on it. Let them improve on it. Give them the starting point, give them the bones, give them the framework, and let them run. Again, trust your team and empower them to improve the foundation that you've built.
Yeah. So, if you suspect you're struggling with strategy, a lot of alliteration there, leave us a comment below. Visit us online at iProvOnline.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we'd love to. Love to hear your comments too, just different things that you're struggling with or different ways you've found your way out of kind of the circle of death that sometimes tweaking strategy could be. So let us know. We're here to help. Pat, I appreciate it. And until next time, peace, peeps.